the round thing.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Well, if you go in enough directions, everything's Asia eventually. By the way, there's something that disgusted me that came out of the Sony hack was about how, these executives, I don't know which executive it was, but, he's not a racist. He thinks Denzel Washington is a great actor, but maybe we shouldn't have him star in films because he doesn't, the other people outside of the U.S. are racist. And it's like, first of all, have some fucking balls. Second of all, the guy's movies have made over $2 billion.
Yeah,
and he is almost always the star of the movies. It's not like there's a lot of people you can say, oh, their movies have made all this money. But it's like, yeah, but he was the third or fourth character in a chain that made a bunch of money. Denzel Washington, he's done pretty well for studios.
Absolutely.
And for them to be saying, this is a guy, maybe we shouldn't have him star in certain movies, it's like, that just shows you how tiny these balls are of these executives. And it ties into what I was disgusted about the movie Exodus, which is where they're making a movie with a pharaoh, and they choose a Australian white guy to be the pharaoh, and the excuse they use is it's about money and you need somebody to open the movie. But the guy who's playing the pharaoh,
I don't understand that part. What do you mean?
What I'm saying is that Ridley Scott said, hey, I'd like to cast other people, but I need stars that are going to open this movie. I need names.
And he cast a white guy that's not a star who can't open a movie.
Yeah, he cast a guy from Australia who has, on Box Office Mojo, which is a good website that gives you these rankings, he didn't have a listing because he was like the 9th guy in the second Star Wars or something. He's not a big... And so it's like you were fucking lying when you said you needed...
Oh, wow. Now, who's this guy? But
that was Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott.
The actor I don't know because, again, he's not a star.
So are you saying Ridley Scott has tiny balls?
Him too, yeah.
And were there photos released of the tiny balls?
The thing as white American men, we should all be on board with being angry about this because now all the white roles are going to people from England and South Africa and Australia. All the stars of The Walking Dead they're like you hear them interviewed and you're like, oh, they all have English accents. Like, are there no American white men working in the movies?
Couldn't they have found a white American to play an Egyptian
couldn't there
pharaoh?
Been a white American that played the role?
I think we've made a lot of progress today.
Yeah. So
I'm outraged.
It just shows you that even Denzel Washington doesn't get respect in terms of money. It's like. Also, the other thing that came out was the sexism, where you have two females who, which is Jennifer Lawrence and Amy Adams, they got 7%, and all the men got 9%.
Yeah. Well, the thing was Jennifer Lawrence. You have to
think about that's like a regulation, right? I mean, women can only make 77% of what a guy makes.
I think Amy Adams has a complaint, but Jennifer Lawrence has no real complaint because you have to think about not the star she is now.
You're right.
How big of a star was she when she signed the contract? Not even when they made the movie, but when she signed the contract to do that movie was probably 4 years ago. She was not the person she was now. Now, Amy Adams was probably even a bigger deal 4 years. Now I guess after the Oscar nomination, she's blown back up again. But she's been a big star for a long time, and I think she sort of is the one with the real complaint there, not really Jennifer Lawrence.
Can't they really make up the difference just having sex with dudes like on the set?
I don't think they would take that currency. I don't think. Well, here's I think. Okay, so the sexism and also the quote unquote cowardice of the interview, pulling the movie, and everything. Here's the problem: is that everybody at the studio level is beholden to the level of balls at their corporate overlords, and so that's part of the artistic problem, right? And so it's not even whether or not Amy Pascal makes the choice because she doesn't. It's like Amy, you do this, you're fired or whatever. Yeah. And so the idea that all these studios are now owned by the biggest corporations and the biggest corporations choose to try and cut costs at all costs and that's a poor phrasing, but one of the ways they do it, I heard some like NPR, somebody describing defending women getting paid less, and they were saying well, women just don't stand up and ask for the. Oh, it's like
the CEO of Microsoft.
Oh, it was.
Just,
it wasn't just a nobody. That's part of the problem. Yeah, this is one of the top echelon dudes. There's a systematic problem, and so from the top down, they see women as a cost-effective measure in their business sense, and then that's trickled down to the studios and the way they pay women. In the same respects, they see this movie as a potential landmine for their other interests, and so they just want to cut it out like a cancer. Because they're not necessarily in the movie. They're in the movie business, but that's not the core of their business. And so, the balls of movie makers are determined by the balls of the people who own the corporation.
Yeah. Tiny balls at the top and tiny balls all the way down.
It's my hypothesis.
And I'm curious because your father's a Republican politician.
Yeah.
What's his stand on equal pay? Is he?
It's a great question. I can't speak for him. I don't know, but I would assume that he's for equal pay. I really would. And so the thing is that we disagree on a lot of policy issues, but he's a really reasonable person.
Gotcha.
So when you get to issues like that are so reasonable, I can assume that he, because it's so, and that's what's so crazy, that congressional Republicans are standing by, fighting the concept. Of course, women and men should make the same.
If you do the same job, you should get the same
it really
pay.
is.
Yeah.
It's like, how can not? I mean, I don't understand why people can't come together on that either.
Yeah.
It's become so ideological, and then, but when you're like us, and you kind of pan back, and you see that, if we don't get money out of the process, that they're really both puppets. It's the old Bill Hicks joke, but
love Bill Hicks.
We're center right. I feel like as a country,
Yes,
and so it's mind-boggling and frustrating when you have people that are Tea Party enthusiasts that are just adamant that that the Democrats or Obama is like a socialist. Like he couldn't be it's like.
Obama
so
is more
far away
conservative
from
than
that.
Nixon was.
Yeah,
when you look at his policies,
I call him Black Reagan.
Yeah,
personally.
And yet they sure don't
It hasn't
see him
caught
that
on.
way. Sure don't see him that way.
Oh yeah, not at all.
He's a guy, and you have to look at Obama. It's like he's a guy who he started, I don't know how many military conflicts, and he got a Nobel Peace Prize just for not being the last guy.
Right.
That's how bad it had been in this.
Right.
In this country.
I think
it's
they're
like,
asking him
like,
to give
you're
it
not
back
Bush,
now,
so you get an
though. I'm
award,
pretty
so there you go.
sure
Yeah.
that they have asked that if you could please return that Peace Prize. It's
Well, he
not,
finally did something that I've been waiting for this country to do for decades. The 4 decades I've been alive, I've been like, well, why are we still having problems with Cuba? Why is it still a problem? Like, well, what about this is ever going to work? And then finally, I was very surprised, but I'm like, oh, I actually like something Obama did. That's pretty
lately.
So let's go into that. That is the normalization of our relations with Cuba.
Bienvenidos a Cuba.
Well, the thing that drives me nuts about it is see Marco Rubio, who's going crazy, like his head is exploding about
Canadians,
and he thinks this is terrible that we're normalizing relations with Cuba, and he's saying it's a betrayal of the Cuban people and that Cuba is a terrorist state. I'm thinking, well, how many times has Cuba tried to overthrow the government of the U.S.? Yeah, let me count all those times they tried to do that to us. Oh wait, and how many times did we try to overthrow their government? How many dozens of times are documented in stuff from the 60s and 50s where we went in and were upset with that? It's like...
Oh, I got the wrong one. Rubio's not the Canadian.
That's Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz,
No, Rubio is he's from Cuba.
Well,
he's Cuban American.
But they're both Cuban.
His
Cuban
parents
descent.
are from
Cruz,
Cuba.
but...
I'm just happy for Major League Baseball. That's really who I'm happy for in all this. I think we can finally have a path where Yasiel Puig doesn't need to be smuggled out and kept in a closet in Mexico for a week. And
it's going to hurt the human interest aspect of Major League Baseball, Cuban players.
We're going to have a lot more like hot dogging baseball players that are fun to watch, and that's going to be great.
Yeah, it's no fun to have a small country that you're competing against. Is the evil country. You need like Russia. That was great. Having communist Russia,
the USSR. We got China now. I mean, we can fight with China, but even then, we're friendly with China. It's not like...
that's the other thing about the people who are still against ending this embargo. It's like, how many billions did you make trading with China? Before we had this the interview. There was the new remake of Red Dawn,
which I saw. It was terrible.
Which was originally had China as the bad guys,
and we changed it because we didn't want to piss off China, and we're like North Korea's smaller.
So they use computer graphics to change the Chinese people to.
Oh, I
don't know
was
if they
not
did
aware of
anything
this.
with their.
I think he just changed the insignias.
And
Yeah.
in Tootsie, Dustin Hoffman was really a man. All right.
What?
Well, I don't. Maybe stopping the embargo was a little premature. Sometimes they take time. Sometimes these things.
Right. 54, 55 years. Let it work.
Who knows? Maybe
Let
we're
it work.
10 years away from this thing finally.
Yeah.
One more year. Just give it
Just
one
one
more
more.
year.
You look at this, and
Yeah.
the admission that Obama made, which is what I think the smartest thing he did in the whole process, where he said, look, we've been doing this for a long time, and it's not accomplishing the goal that we set out 50 years ago, so why don't we try something different? Which I think he's probably the first president to utter that phrase since FDR, who was like the only guy I can think of where he's like, well, when they asked him when he came in office, he's like, so how are you going to solve the Great Depression? He's like, well, we're going to try a bunch of stuff. And they're like, well, what if it doesn't work? He's like, then we won't do that anymore. We'll do something else.
Do something different.
And he's like,
You're right,
like
right.
You need somebody who can actually adapt like that. And these days, politicians are just like, this is what I believe, and I'm going to believe it till my grave.
Right. And ignore all evidence.
You know what's cool about Cuba is, I think this is interesting, is that in the same week that through oil prices the Russian currency crashes, we grab the little kind of proxy state of Russia closest to us and lock it in.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like in this, because Obama's been hit all year about how, or the whole presidency about how he's perceived as being weak, and about how Vladimir Putin is perceived as being such a genius. But in this week, in one fell swoop, Obama, to give him credit for whatever global events, like through crashing oil prices, the ruble went down, Russia's in turmoil, and we brought in Cuba to our fold. It's an interesting kind of turn.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective.
And
after so many Tea Partiers and Republicans, where you would think they're stroking like Putin ever since
they love him.
Oh,
they like
huge fans.
wait a second, like they're
getting all their news on RT.com, which is the Russian state news. They're like, they love the coverage on there, and
there's great like Daily Show and Colbert stuff about it. But I'll be clear, they love his leadership style, but it's just it's kind of bled into like there's like a weird like propping him up and his moves because they're so anti-Obama.
Yeah.
Any antagonist to Obama is on their side, and therefore
any enemy of the United States is their friend.
I mean, those are stark words.
Except Hugo Chavez.
It's amazing, and I mean, if he was, I'd like to see Obama come out, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but to do something that the Tea Party or the Republicans, Obamacare was one. But that was their idea to begin with. But he could come out and say anything that they were for, and then they would automatically knee-jerk to be against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah, they still think he's taking their guns, We're like 6 years into it.
It's a long con.
Stylistically, I think Obama has had some problems. Like, when you look at Obama,
the base suit, is
not
that style.
I don't care about the base suit, but I'm saying, like, you guys all remember Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And what everybody always said about Bill Clinton was, if you talked to Bill Clinton or you saw Bill Clinton speak about anything, he really seemed like he cared. Like, the I feel your pain, like the famous line from him, right? Obama's basically the opposite of that. Like, the things he's most passionate about, you look at him, you're like, he looks like he just doesn't care. Like, he just has this demeanor where he's just so aloof about all that stuff, and he doesn't have that passion that I think a lot of us look for in a leader. And that's one of the things that, like, annoyed me about him, in 2008. I was just like, he just looks like he's just, he's going for a lot of platitudes and he can give a good speech, but I want a little more oomph. But then
this ties into what I was saying earlier. When he will be, if he shows emotion though. Mm-hmm. Oh,
it's tough for a black guy.
Yeah, it really is.
Then he's the angry black guy, and then he's done.
Absolutely, yeah. and they're already talking about him being angry behind the scenes. People reporting about him being angry.
He curses in the White House.
Yeah, and
oh no,
yeah, and the fact that this ties into the whole thing with women. They should just all they need to do is just step forward and ask for raises. And it's like then there was a study about reviews. And how the word abrasive is only found in reviews of women. And those are the women, of course, who asked for money.
Now, Jim, have you worked with women?
Well, yes. We've all had to at some point. Yes. So, it's Yeah, I agree that he's definitely the college professor type in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he really